Chapter 11 of Plunkitt of Tammany Hall, a series of very plain talks on very practical politics. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Mike Vendetti. Plunkitt of Tammany Hall, a series of very plain talks on very practical politics by George Washington Plunkitt. Chapter 11. Tammany Leaders, Not Bookworms. You hear a lot of talk about the Tammany district leaders being illiterate men. If illiterate means having common sense, we plead guilty. But if they mean that Tammany leaders ain't got no education and ain't gents, they don't know what they're talking about. Of course, we ain't all bookworms and college professors. If we were, Tammany might win an election once in 4,000 years. Most of the leaders are plain American citizens, of the people and near to the people. And they have all the education they need to whip the dudes who part their name in the middle, and to run the city government. We've got bookworms, too, in the organization, but we don't make them district leaders. We keep them for ornaments on parade days. Tammany Hall is a great big machine, with every part adjusted delicate, to do its own particular work. It runs so smooth that you wouldn't think it was a complicated affair. But it is. Every district leader is fitted to the district he runs, and he wouldn't exactly fit any other district. That's the reason Tammany never makes the mistake the Fusion outfit always makes of sending men into the districts who don't know the people, and have no sympathy with their peculiarities. We don't put a silk stocking on the Bowery, nor do we make a man who is handy with his fists leader of the 29th. The Fusionists make about the same sort of a mistake that a repeater made at an election in Albany several years ago. He was hired to go to the polls early in a half-dozen election districts and vote on other men's names before these men reached the polls. At one place, when he was asked his name by the poll clerk, he had the nerve to answer, "William Croswell Doane." "Come off, you ain't Bishop Doane," said the poll clerk. "The hell I ain't, I yelled the repeater. Now that is the sort of bad judgment the Fusionists are guilty of. They don't pick men to suit the work they have to do. Take me, for instance. My district, the 15th, is made up of all sorts of people, and a cosmopolitan is needed to run it successful. I'm a cosmopolitan. When I get into the silk-stocking part of the district, I can talk grammar and all that with the best of 'em. I went to school 3 winters when I was a boy, and I learned a lot of fancy stuff that I keep for occasions. There ain't a silk-stocking in the district who ain't proud to be seen talking with George Washington Plunkitt. And maybe they learn a thing or two from their talks with me. There's one man in the district, a big banker, who said to me one day, "George, you can sling the most vigorous English I ever heard. You remind me of Senator Hoar of Massachusetts." Of course, that was putting it on too thick, but say honest, I like Senator Hoar's speeches. He once quoted in the United States Senate some of my remarks on the curse of civil service, and though he didn't agree with me altogether, I noticed that our ideas are alike in some things, and we both have the knack of putting things strong. Only he put on more frills to suit his audience. As for the common people of the district, I am at home with them at all times. When I go among them, I don't try to show off my grammar, or talk about the Constitution, or how many volts there is in electricity, or make it appear in any way that I am better educated than they are. They wouldn't stand for that sort of thing. No, I drop all monkey shines. So you see, I've got to be several sorts of a man in a single day, a lightning change artist, so to speak. But I am one sort of man always in one respect. I stick to my friends high and low, do them a good turn whenever I get a chance, and hunt up all the jobs going for my constituents. There ain't a man in New York who's got such a scent for political jobs as I have. When I get up in the morning I can almost tell every time whether a job has become vacant overnight, and what department it is in, and I'm the first man on the ground to get it. Only last week I turned up at the office of Water Register Savage at 9 a.m. and told him I wanted a vacant place in his office for one of my constituents. "How did you know that O'Brien had got out?" he asked me. "I smelled it in the air when I got up this morning," I answered. Now that was the fact. I didn't know there was a man in the department named O'Brien, much less that he had got out. But my scent led me to the Water Register's office, and it don't often lead me wrong. A cosmopolitan ain't needed in all the other districts, but our men are just the kind to rule. There's Dan Finn in the Battery district, bluff, jolly Dan, who is now on the bench. Maybe you'd think that a court justice is not the man to hold a district like that, but you're mistaken. Most of the voters of the district are the janitors of the big office buildings on Lower Broadway and their helpers. These janitors are the most dignified and haughtiest of men. Even I would have trouble in holding them. Nothing less than a judge on the bench is good enough for them. Dan does the dignity act with the janitors, and when he is with the boys he hangs up the ermine in the closet and becomes a jolly good fellow. Big Tom Foley, leader of the 2nd District, fits in exactly, too. Tom sells whiskey, and good whiskey, and he is able to take care of himself against a half-dozen thugs if he runs up against them on Cherry Hill or in Charterman Square. Pat Ryder and Johnny Aaron of the 3rd and 4th Districts are just the men for the places. Aaron's constituents are about half Irishmen and half Jews. He is as popular with one race as with the other. He eats corned beef and kosher meat with equal nonchalance, and it's all the same to him, whether he takes off his hat in the church or pulls it down over his ears in the synagogue. The other downtown leaders, Barney Martin of the 5th, Tim Sullivan of the 6th, Pat Kean of the 7th, Florrie Sullivan of the 8th, Frank Goodwin of the 9th, Julius Harberger of the 10th, Pete Dooling of the 11th, Joe Scully of the 12th, Johnny Oakley of the 14th, and Pat Keenan of the 16th, are just built to suit the people they have to deal with. They don't go in for the literary business much downtown, but these men are all real gents, and that's what the people want, even the poorest tenement dwellers. As you go further uptown, you find a rather different kind of district leader. There's Victor Dowling, who was until lately the leader of the 24th. He's a Lulu. He knows the Latin grammar backward. What's strange, he's a sensible young fellow, too. And once in a century we come across a fellow like that in Tammany politics. James J. Martin, leader of the 27th, is also something of a high-toner, and publishes a law paper, while Thomas E. Rush of the 29th is a lawyer, and Isaac Hopper of the 31st is a big contractor. The downtown leaders wouldn't do uptown, and vice versa. So you see, these fool critics don't know what they're talking about when they criticize Tammany Hall, the most perfect political machine on earth. End of chapter 11.